Thanks to everyone for coming. I'll just introduce myself for those people who don't know me. I'm Andy Stevenson. I'm one of the co-founders of Reverse Rett. And my job title now is Clinical Trial Lead and Supporter Care. I have a daughter with Rett syndrome who's 21, Beth, and a stepdaughter who is my daughter, even though she's not officially, Amber, who is 26 on Saturday. So between the two of them, I've seen, obviously experienced a lot. And just quickly, if anybody ever wants to ask any advice, just contact me anytime, because I'm there to help. I'm here to help, sorry. So I'm just going to start by sharing the screen and talk you through what we do at Reverse Rett for clinical trials, how you get your children involved in clinical trials, a little bit about the trials that are happening at the moment and are due to start quite soon. And then, as Beth said, I'll pass over to Luis for the stuff about the new app, because I'm a bit of a technophobe, so it's not my strong point. So let's get going, get this picture off. And straight away, we've got a technical issue. Oh yeah, here we go. Wesley's just running in from the office to help me. Very kind of him. So Reverse Rett. Thank you. Put these slides together just to let you know, if you don't already, what our mission is. In the last few years, it's changed slightly because of the clinical trials and the fact that clinical research had moved on so quickly. When we first started, we basically raised money and sent it to the international research programme, and mainly to the labs based in Edinburgh, Stuart Cobb, Sir Adrian Bird. But now there's a lot more going on. These are the 4 pillars of our work. We are very, very, very passionate about making sure that everybody who has Rett syndrome has a chance to get the treatment and a cure. Everyone across the board, there isn't anyone that we're not fighting for. So we fund laboratory and clinical research projects that will lead to better outcomes for children and adults with Rett syndrome, both now and in the future. We advocate to access treatments and therapies for all affected patients. Most people know that getting new drugs funded is not easy. So when there are drugs available for Rett syndrome, one of our jobs is to make sure that they get funded, that we put a case forward to ensure that happens. Outreach, as it says there, we're trying to get more and more people involved and understanding about Rett syndrome. And also, it's very much part of our agenda to find people who have been missed, who haven't got a diagnosis. We've had people in the last 18 months who are living in care homes, they're in the 30s, and they're only just being diagnosed with Rett syndrome, which is quite terrifying. So we literally don't know how many people there are in the UK with Rett syndrome because of this. And one of the things that we're working hard on, and we've got a campaign that's going to start soon, which involves writing to every MP in the country to try and find more people. And obviously that has a knock-on effect, because the more people that we discover and the more people that have Rett syndrome, the more chance there is for these drugs to be approved through NICE when it comes to funding them. I should have said at the beginning, if anybody's got a question, you don't have to wait to the end, because it's likely that you may forget it. So as I change slides, if you've got something that you want to ask, then just sort of unmute yourself and ask. So I'm going to talk next about how we support clinical research. here at Reverse Rett. The Rett Registry UK, we started it in 2013. It's an accurate and up-to-date contact information for registered patients and families, where you give your consent to be contacted regarding upcoming trials and research opportunities. We don't send emails regarding fundraising or anything like that to people who are on the registry. It's purely for research and to keep them updated on what's happening. As we said earlier, Louise is going to talk about the new features that are going to be available to everybody when the app is up and running. I'm looking forward to him sharing it with you because it's really, really exciting. It's much more interactive and it gives you a chance to change things on there, whereas at the moment it's fairly static and quite a lot of people don't even realize that they've signed up for it, because you end up signing up for so many things living this life that you sometimes not too sure what you've signed up for and what you haven't. So we do get quite a lot of duplications. So this app's going to take away a lot of those problems. So these are our partners, and through these partnerships with pharmaceutical companies and hospitals, we are contracted to recruit patients, and we are paid per patient. For each one that we recruit, we get a payment, which we then reinvest into the SIP Rett Centre. It's quite amazing to know, to look at this for me, who's been here from day one, because around 2015, Rachel had a conversation with a pharmaceutical company who basically said the UK is a no-no for clinical trials because there aren't doctors capable of doing them. And that actually terrified us, because it's one thing having a cure or drugs for Rett syndrome, but not having them available here in the UK when we're doing so much work is just unthinkable. So over the last 6 years, we've developed relationships with all of the pharmaceutical companies that you can see on the screen. We have close contact with all of them, bi-weekly calls with some of them. And the same with the hospital. We've got Professor Santosh, who has led the way and is now seen as leading Rett specialist in the UK. But there's also Rett doctors at Nottingham, Manchester, Edinburgh, Evelina. Not all of them see as many patients as they do at King's, at the Rett Centre. But they are all familiar with Rett syndrome, and they're all very passionate and positive about the future and the chances of there being things that are going to help the condition. So usually before a trial starts, the pharmaceutical company will put together a questionnaire, usually involving the burden of illness, and ask questions about how it affects the daily life, and try and get an understanding of how many patients there are interested. We also support the trial sites, providing funding for example, dedicated clinical trials coordinator at the SIP Rett Centre, which we started funding in 2016 and still fund to this day. We've also bought bits of equipment for the SIP Rett Centre. Before it was a SIP Rett Centre, we bought a vein viewer, because when the first clinical trials started, we discovered that people with Rett syndrome really struggle to get blood out the veins. So having a vein viewer there enables them to find the best vein and get the blood out much easier. We identify the patients from the patient registry, which is why I can't stress strongly enough that being on the registry as a parent, if you are interested in clinical trials, there's no pressure to take part, even if you're eligible. But if you want to be on there, that is how you're going to get contacted to express an interest for a particular trial. We send an email to every single person on the registry whose child is within the trial criteria regarding age and a few other things, and you just write back yes or no. Once we've collated all that information, we do it as fair as we can, which is basically going from the person who wrote back first, which if you know this is coming up, it's a good idea to maybe set a notification on your phone to make sure you know that an email's come in regarding something like this, or just check your emails on a regular basis. I know how difficult your lives are, and sometimes you'll go probably 4 or 5 days without checking your emails. Try and stay on top of it if you know that the trial coming up and we're going to be asking the question. So once that has happened and we've got the yeses and the nos, a list is put together, and I then write to the people who have said yes, probably dependent on the number of people, patients that the trial site wants or can manage. It can change at any time. For example, the first trial that we were involved in that started in 2017, initially they only wanted 5 to 10 patients, and over time we ended up referring 28 patients to that site, which was the best referral number in the world, because it was a 12 sites across the world, including the States, and we had the highest number of participants. So even if you're not on the first few, if say a trial site wants 5 people, there's still a chance that those people won't make it through screening, or they might change their mind and decide not to go ahead. So it's always, it's not gone just because we recruit the right number, because it's changeable. So I write to the people. I set up a phone call, first of all, just to talk through what's involved in the trial and get a little bit more understanding about your child and whether this trial is going to be right for them. It gives you a chance to ask any questions. And if there's anything that excludes your child from taking part, we can catch it early so that you're not getting hope and getting excited about something that's not going to be able to happen. So it's very, very important to have that initial phone call. And a lot of the time, because I've spoken now probably to over 100 parents for the various trials, and a lot of the time they're very, very nervous about putting the daughter forward or the son forward for a trial, because it's a drug that's obviously not out on open market. So having that initial chat and me having been involved in a clinical trial with Amber, I can put their minds at rest, because safety is number one. Everything else comes second to safety. If there's any kind of issue whatsoever, even if the primary investigator at the trial thinks it might be something else, they will remove the drug immediately until things settle down and then restart. It's also important to have this call because the commitment for the trials vary so much. Some trials require overnight stays. They require you to take home wearable technology that you have to monitor and keep accurate records for. Whereas other trials are very, very straightforward and only involve sometimes only 3 or 4 visits to the hospital for half-day visits once you've got through the screening. So they're quite straightforward. So making people understand the commitment involved is very, 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 very important, because as far as everyone involved is concerned, the last thing you want is somebody going into it and then 3 weeks in deciding that it's too much or they no longer want to take part. You want to make sure that the commitment is there from the families and they understand what's involved. Other than that phone call with me, you can also go to clinicaltrial.gov and look up the trials that are taking place or are due to take place and read the inclusion and exclusion criteria, and then get back in touch if there's anything you don't understand or you need clarifying. So at the end of the call with the parent, it's a simple case of saying, do you want to go forward? It looks like your child's eligible, or do you want to think about it, or is it a no? Now, I would say 99 times out of 100, it's been, yes, put me forward. And the reason for that is I always explain that I'm just talking them through the very basics and getting a feel for their situation. Whereas when you get in front of the PI involved, or just have the phone call with the trial site, they will give you information that will allow you to make a more informed decision. So I always think there's nothing ventured, nothing gained sort of philosophy, because you can still say no anytime. We've had parents who have said no the night before they were due to be in hospital for screening. It's not ideal for anyone. After all the work of going through, making them aware and booking the appointment in the clinical trials unit, which can be quite scarce, especially through COVID and the pandemic. But it is there, that option is there for all of you to just say, no, I'm not feeling happy about this. You need to do what's right for your child. You can't be thinking about anyone else other than your child and your life. So that option is always there. So reducing burden. Although the information I've given you so far is very, very important, this is equally as important, because getting a child like ours to a clinical trial can be stressful. Well, it is stressful, especially if there's an overnight stay. It can be horrendous. There's no getting away from it, but you know that already, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So our job is to make that process as simple and as easy for you as possible. So we always review the facilities at the clinical research facility, whatever the site is. So when we started the CBD trial, we went over to Alder Hey in Liverpool. We met with Dr. Kumar and his team. We had a look around the facility. It was absolutely fantastic. So we always review the facilities before we send someone there. We're not going to send someone to somewhere that we don't know about. It's just not what we do. For the Manchester trial, and there's one going on at the moment with Anavex for adults, Rachel and I actually went on the vaccine trial that was taking place in Manchester. And the main reason we went there was to see what the trial site was like, rather than, we both ended up getting placebo. So it was, as far as the vaccine went, it was a waste of time. But we went and saw the nurses and the doctors who work there. We saw the facilities, the hoists and all the other equipment that you need for somebody with Rett syndrome. And it's absolutely fantastic. So when I did the phone calls with the families after that, I could say hand on heart that there isn't anything at the clinical trial facility that was going to be off-putting. There was plenty of privacy and everything else. So that's one of the main things that we do when a trial site has been confirmed. We check out hotels when there's overnight stays and you might have to take other family members. We check out hotels, making sure there's appropriate accessibility and the equipment that you need to deal with your child. When we went to King's for the Sarizitan trial, the only hotel that we could find that was consistent and had hoists was in North London, in Archway, which, if anyone knows London, is so far from King's College Hospital, it's frightening. We occasionally, when it was really bad traffic, we had a 2-hour black cab ride from North London to get Amber to the trial site. And it was tough and it was stressful. So we find the hotels and we make the bookings. We sort all that out for you. So you do have the option of booking your own hotel and sending us the invoice for it. But usually we have accounts with Premier Inn and a few other different hotel chains, and we can make the bookings for you. Now, one of the other things that can be quite off-putting is worrying about whether, other children that you have who need to go with you. Some people might need an extra carer. Some people take a friend to act as an extra carer. All those things are covered. So if you need 2 rooms, if you need 3 rooms, you can have 3 rooms. The pharmaceutical companies pay for everything. you pay for all the expenses, so you're not out of pocket. And it is something that's important because there are families who can't afford to spend money to go down to a trial, to go to, London if they live in, Liverpool or wherever. So it's important that they know that right from the get-go, that everything that they're going to be shelling out to go is going to be covered for. Some trials pay a nominal fee, around £40 a day just for you actually attending. You then get meal allowances. So if it's a day, if you're going for a day and you're traveling on the day, you would get breakfast, lunch and dinner, regardless of what time you were there. We just pay blanket across the board for the day, just to make it easier and less stressful. We also pay travel, so trains. If you go by train, sometimes it's better to book yourself, just so you can get in touch with the disability team at the train station and let them know what you need, if you need ramps to get on and all the rest of it. Whereas obviously Evelina, who does the booking for the trials, she doesn't know each patient's issues, so it's much better if you do that. But everything is paid for there, and if you drive, it's the same thing. You get, I think it's 45p a mile, so you just need to send us your mileage from home to the hospital and back. If you have parking, keep your receipts and send all that to us, and you get paid usually between 3 to 5 days. Again, you can also fly. So, for example, Steph's here from Dornoch, which isn't that far from Inverness. If she wanted to fly to London, the pharmaceutical company would pay for that flight for whoever needed to go. And the final thing that we do to reduce burden is we develop patient information sheets about each site. So you know what's there, you know what to expect before you go, and any issues that you have, you can ask us before you actually go, rather than getting into trouble when you're there. Which, just as an aside, I know quite a lot about, because as it happened with the Sirizitan trial, Amber was the first patient in the UK. I think it wasn't sort of meant to happen that way, but there was a bit of nervousness from families about putting the child forward for the first UK trial. So there wasn't a huge number of people who wanted to go. So we ended up going, and it turned out to be a godsend because we made so many mistakes. It was quite scary. It was also the first trial that Professor Santosh and his team had done. So it was good that we were the people that were there first. And some stupid little things like hoists not being charged and things like that, that didn't happen again. They learned from Amber, and she wasn't stressed. She finds everything funny. But there was, before the vein viewer existed in that team, there was one day where she had 12 sticks to try and get blood out of her arm. They ended up coming out of a knuckle. And she did get a little bit distressed, but it didn't put her off going back. Every time we said we were going, she was laughing. So she did enjoy it, but it was great that we went first because all the mistakes could be ironed out. The only thing we couldn't iron out was mistakes that the hotels made, which did occasionally happen, where they hadn't booked the right room or they didn't have a hoist available or whatever. But everybody who goes has my personal mobile number, and they can ring me. So if they arrive in London at 10 o'clock at night and they're having an issue with payment, if they're having an issue with the room, they can ring me. I'll talk to the hotel and iron all that sort of stuff out. And that did happen quite a few times, but it happened to us more than anything else or anyone else. So over to Louise. He's going to just discuss a little bit more about the Rett Registry and show you a little bit about an app. And then it will be back to me to just talk you through a little bit about the latest trial. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, Louise, are you there?
I am here, yes, I am here.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay, great, fantastic. I hope everyone can hear me okay. If there are any sound issues or whatever, then just wave frantically at your screen, and we'll make sure that we get that bit in the reverse rep video that goes up on Facebook. Right, okay, let's see. So I'm just going to give you a quick chat through the registry, and I'll be sharing my screen in a second. Just a quick note up front, which is that everything that I'll be sharing with you at the moment, the registry is under development at the moment. So this is all running locally on my computer. There are a few things which are up online, and I will point you towards the links that are up and existing in a moment. But all the data that you'll see in the app, it's all fake. And you might see some random, because obviously while I'm generating this and I don't have real data, I generate my own fake data using a bunch of libraries and stuff like this. So you might see bits of Latin in there and all that kind of stuff. Don't let it confuse you. It's just mostly the aesthetics that we're talking about and the function behind the app, which is good. So I'm just going to share my screen, and let's see. Can everybody see the screen there? Yeah, okay, perfect. So at the moment, this is our landing page, and I'll just talk to you a little bit about the idea behind the registry, which is that, as Andy's mentioned, Reverse Ret have had a registry for a long time, and in this project, we're trying to turn it into something which much more effectively manages clinical trials, but also something which that's not the kind of the sole ambition of the app, because we thought we may as well try and make something which really kind of makes a difference to the parents and carers of young people with Rett syndrome. And so I'll forward you onto this site. This is just a landing page, but it pretty much fairly clearly identifies the aims of the app, which is that it's going to be the most comprehensive registry, or already is the most comprehensive registry of Rett syndrome patients in the UK. And it's built by Reverse Ret, but it's not going to be just a registry. So it's going to have a set of features, a bunch of things that parents and carers are able to use to reduce admin, that link to resources, that connect you up to all the other people that are out there. We've had a bunch of talks, obviously whilst in development of this app and in the last few years, and there are a few things which come up on a regular basis, which hopefully this app will be addressing, and will make parents and carers' lives easier, as well as being a useful tool for Reverse Ret to be able to manage clinical trials more effectively. I won't walk you through this page just now, but it's got some various bits and bobs about the app, and I'll give you the link kind of later on. It's live on the internet, so I'll share that link with you. But I'll just give you a very quick run through the app as it stands, and I'll take any questions at the end. So at the moment, as I say, this is a development version, so things might change, things might be different in later versions of it. We have this is our landing screen, and so straight off the bat, you can see we've got a bunch of links off the top. This is what a parent or carer will see when they log into the app. And one of the first features that we've really gone to town on with this app is that it has to have security right at the center of it. So the idea being that it has secure login, it has the option for two-factor authentication, which is where, in fact, I'll just show you this very quickly, where you can scan a QR code on your phone, and that gives you an extra layer of protection when you go in. So as you can see, I haven't got two-factor authentication enabled at the moment. I can enable it by typing in my password, and it just gives me a QR code which I'll scan on my phone, and then every time I log into the app, it'll ask me for the QR code coming from my phone. So not only is it secure, but also nobody else without your device can get into the account, which is a very useful feature, I think. We also have a bunch of other features to do with data and to do with security, and I guess the idea here is that we want to put everyone's mind at rest that, like, the data is such a big thing at the moment. We want to make sure that everything that you want to keep private on the app is maintained private. So all the patient data, we specify where the patient data is shared with Reverse Ret, and it's very small amount of data. All the rest of it is basically private to the parents, to the carers, to the people who can see the actual account. So no admins, no anyone else will be able to access that data. You'll be able to update all your information, so you'll be able to manage your phone number, your contact details, your address, all the rest of it. You can obviously change your passwords and things like that, and you can update your preferences for various things. The registry won't be getting in touch with you on a regular basis about marketing things or anything like that. It's just like the core essentials really that that are part of the app. You can very easily make subject access requests, and subject access requests are where you can request your data under GDPR law. You can request a full copy of your data to see what it is exactly that Reverse Ret holds on yourself and on the patients that are on there. So we're very transparent. Everything is on there. It's super easy to be able to access a full copy of your data. There's no kind of opacity, like layers of opaqueness kind of over the top of it. You can also manage your security here, so you can see which other browser sessions are kind of logging into the account. If there's something you don't recognize, you can log out other browser sessions. You can reset your password. So really, there's a whole suite of features here. There's also email validation, and obviously we'll be sending emails to account emails to your email account with things like password resets and all that kind of stuff. So it's all very secure, and of course you can delete your account if you wish to. So I'll just head back to the dashboard. So those are some of the security features that we've got, and then really the idea behind the rest of the app was to be able to make it very easy to be able to manage and have all your records in one place for a patient. And I guess the thinking there is that so often, so I didn't introduce myself, by the way, but like I've been working with and for Reverse Ret for a number of years now, and so I've had interactions with parents, with carers, with the staff, and something that we hear like all the time and see on a regular basis is that there are lots of administrative complications as well as health complications. So things like paperwork, things like hospital appointments, things like all these kind of things which are quite difficult to kind of manage, and quite often people have big filing systems, or they have extensive like ways of collecting all this information, and it's difficult whenever you change school or whenever you move to a new place, or if you have a new hospital appointment. It's very difficult to kind of collect all this stuff in one place and keep it current. So this hopefully proposes a solution to that, which is that you're able to manage a patient. So I'll just show you, this is again a randomly generated patient. We've got Chaz Strozin here, who is a patient, and all this data is fake data, but this is just to give you an idea of the features that are on the app. So you can see here, this is as a parent or carer, I will be able to see this on the account. I'll be able to add MECP2 tests or other tests that Chaz has had, and I'll be able to update their various bits of information. So here we've got their date of birth, their gender, ethnicity, all that stuff, and their relationship with you. They'll have that's an interesting profile image for Chaz, again, like a fake data, bear in mind, but you're able to add additional data, so you're able to maintain things like their NHS number, like the school that they currently attend. You're able to add bits of information to do with them, again, quotes from Alice in Wonderland, ignore them. We've got communication, we've got causes of distress, anything that's relevant and pertinent to that user, to the patient, which would be useful for you to be able to like communicate to other people. And it doesn't need to be collated anywhere else. It can just all be put straight into this app. You can add professionals to their account, so anyone who is working with that patient at the time, then you can just like pop them on there. You can access their record at any point. So we've got Sir Eduardo Daniel, who's the stonecutter. But as you can see here, we've got their email address, their contact detail, and their full address as well. So if you ever require to get in touch with them, you just need to nip in here, and you can manage all the professionals that work with your the young person with Rett syndrome. You can also add conditions into the app, so any diagnoses that they have, and these will link up actually to the Rett Disorders Alliance health checklist. So this is something that I've built into the app, which will hopefully give you some more information about what it is, the specific condition, if you require it, because often if you're adding a new condition, I can imagine that there might be a situation in which you want to find out more about that condition. And you might want to find out more about papers that have been published, or what the advice is on treatments and things like that. So with that in mind, we built the health checklist in, and you can see here it's linked me straight to sleep disturbance in the health checklist, and I'm able to read a bit more about that. I'm able to have a look at the various papers that are published there, any helpful advice that's been put in there, and these are so you can see. I'll just pop you over to the introduction, so you can see. the full extent of this. We've got the full health checklist. So we've got an introduction, we've got all the different sections for respiratory, nervous system, cardiovascular, gastroenteric, nervous system, we've got renal, urological, etc. So like they're all in there, and they'll all be linkable to conditions. You'll be able to see link straight across to those and use them for reference. They're built in within the app, so hopefully nice and easy to see, along with the introductions and all the rest of it that are actually there as part of the health checklist. You can also download the real copy of it as well. So if you did want to see a PDF copy of the actual version, it's available there as a PDF. So back to the patient. So as you can see, we've got several conditions in here. They all link where they've got a little information mark. They all link straight to the health checklist. You're able to add medications, and as I say, like these are just made up, but we've got a couple of medications here. You're able to add notes if you want to, so any notes that are pertinent to that particular medication that need to be kind of considered. And as you can see here, we've just got the name, the purpose, the dose, the time, the number of doses, and how long this has been taken for. And then you can add any other surgeries or equipment that the young person uses. Again, these are just very easily addable. So you just click on add surgery or add equipment, or all of these things just have a simple button at the bottom that you can just add these things straight on. Very easy to use. And then you can finally manage the hospital admissions as well, so that you can keep a record, just like a note form. It's nothing. It's not intended as a replacement for kind of medical records or anything like that, but it's a way of you being able to keep notes about your young person, be able to refer very quickly to previous times that they've had hospital admissions, maybe other things that might have been pertinent to those visits. So hopefully some useful features there, and that's just on the hospital on the patient record. I'm just going to navigate back to the dashboard now. Something else that we've built into the app is the availability of those records to be able to access those records. So for example, if you're on the registry on your phone, for example, if you're at an appointment, if you're at a new school, for example, you're able to access all those records that are within your patient's account very quickly. And so here you can see we've got a hospital passport section, which essentially we've got two versions at the moment. We'll probably whittle these down to just one, but they're essentially the same thing, but just one is a bit prettier than the other. We've got the passport for the patient, which is basically a summary of all the patient information. And I can view that, I can download it as a PDF or download it as an Excel file, and that will come straight to your device. Obviously you have to authenticate, so this is one of the things that we have, the security features that we have in the app, is that you can't just like download these willy-nilly. You have to re-input your password, sorry. But if I just click on view, I'm just going to show you, I think this will be Chaz, is condensed passport. So as you can see here, it's summarized all the data that's in the profile. This will be accessible as a PDF, so you'll be able to click on it on your phone while you're out and about if you need to summarize all your data. And here it is. So you'll be able to see all the contacts. By the way, we've made it possible that multiple people can manage one contact. So it's not that you'd have one account which is managed by a number of people. You'd create a number of accounts which are linked to one account. So for example, if I wanted to add Rachel or Andy or Beth onto this account, I could just link them, and they're now able to manage this patient as well. All the contacts will come here. The primary contact will come first. And as you can see here, we've got their school, we've got their preferred name, and then we've got all their medication, all their conditions, all their surgeries, and all their equipment professionals listed. We will obviously add the likes, dislikes, all the rest of it. That will be in there as well. So really simple way of being able to access all that information and share it with somebody else should the need arise, because I've heard so many times that I've seen file systems, I've seen, like all kinds of stuff, like bespoke documents that people have to be able to manage all the massive amount of paperwork that comes that comes with managing a condition like Rett syndrome. So hopefully this facilitates some of that. There are a couple other things that we've added into the account. I won't talk your ear off about them, but so far we've covered the health checklist, the patients section. Obviously, you'll be able to see progress on clinical trials. Should a patient be on a clinical trial, you'll be able to see information about that trial. You'll be able to see the progress through it, and you'll be able to opt into to the expression of interest, and various things along those lines. So those are more clinical trial-based things. But in terms of other features that we've added into this to the app. There is a messenger, so that you can communicate very quickly with someone, a member of staff. So these are one-way lines of two-way lines of communication, straight line ways of communicating with Rett Registry staff, so staff at Reverse Rett. So this won't be publicized to anyone outside the app, obviously. These will be one-way lines of communication, but if you have a query or if you have anything, it's very easy to get in touch. You can do that obviously through email, but you can also nip into the messenger. I think I added a little message in here just so you see what the messenger looks like. So you can see here it's kind of Facebook style, and then you can see like any messages that have been sent and received by yourself. And the last thing that we've added, the last feature that I've added into this, we hear, I think a really useful thing that Reverse Rett do is these kind of like group days where we're able to chat to other parents. You're able to like communicate various things that are going on, and so we've tried to facilitate something similar in building a forum, and the forum is a public space where anyone who's signed into the app, so anyone who's made an account and registered to the app, can pop along on here, and you can see various posts made by other parents or carers, and you can nip onto them. So again, this is all obviously a mixture of Alice in Wonderland and Latin, so there's not much coherent stuff here. But if you can imagine, these are coherent questions asked by real people. Then there'll be some fairly useful things here, whether it's like for asking about parents in a particular geographical location or asking about a particular problem. It's sometimes useful to get other feedback from other parents and carers, people who are going through the same situation as yourself, and so. This is a space in which you're able to do that, and within one of these, I'll just pop into sit facere voluptarum omnis ulam consecutor, etc. And you can see here that the question is posed, and then there are a number of answers from it. So you can see here a load of people have answered. You're able to upvote answers. It's a classic forum technique. So if an answer is relevant to is relevant to the question, then you can upvote it, and then the answers with the most relevant scores get added to the top, and you're able to filter those out. So you can see the most recent, or you can see the ones that have most votes, and quite often you'll get some very useful resources right at the top, the most useful answers. So that's quite useful. You're able to watch a post. So if I click on this, the post will be added to a list that I'll be able to access through this watched posts drop down. So there you go. So that's a very quick rundown. It's very easy to make a new post. You can add tags to your post. So if you did want to look for a post with a particular tag, say I wanted to look for dicta tag, I'm able to just click on that. This might be London, it might be a particular syndrome, a particular condition, it might be any number of things, but you can just click on that and see all the posts that have been listed with those. These are posted by parents and carers, so it's obviously administered by Reverse Rett, but it's an open forum to people who are registered with the app and who have gone through the full validation process. So we won't just freely admit anyone onto the app. Will obviously be there's a process as people come onto the app. It won't just be like an open forum, is what I'm saying. It'll be kind of a closed space, but hopefully quite a useful space. So there you go. That's a bit of a rundown through the registry. I think I've covered most things. I don't want to talk too in depth about this, and obviously this is in development at the moment. The app will eventually, and probably by the end of the day, at the moment there's a bit of a redirect in place, but it will be available at reregister.uk. At the moment it forwards you on to a different location because at the moment this site's in development, but reregister.uk will be where the site is hosted. And I think right now you can nip over there and you can see the landing page that I've showed you. So the this one here. So this is at that location at the moment. So if you bookmark reregister.uk, you'll be able to read all of this stuff and just see the top line about the app. And at the bottom, I know Beth shared this just now, but you are able to register. This will link you to the Reverse Rett page on the Reverse Rett website, which allows you to join the registry. So if you are not a part of that just now, I would advise you to do so, urge you to do so. Yeah, there you go. That's a bit of information about the registry. Any questions?
I have a quick question, Louise. Yeah. If people are already registered on the existing registry, they don't need to re-register on the new app, right? It's all part of the same thing, and they'll just be transferred over and be able to access their current information that will now be in the kind of new registry?
Yeah, so there's going to be a transfer process. So where we take people from the registry as it exists now, and we put them into the registry, the new registry. And so when that happens, you'll get an email invite. So obviously we'll input your contact info and all the stuff that's in there. When the account is created, it will automatically send you an email to reset your password, and you'll then be able to follow the link, go to the app, reset your password, and that will allow you access into the app in the full features. So there's no need to do anything new about that. It'll happen as a kind of like automatic process as we add records into the Rett registry. So yeah.
Great.
Any other questions?
Dawn.
If you are one of those people that can't remember what forms you filled out and if you've registered or not registered, can you, if I go in again and register if I've already done it, will that duplicate it, or will it tell me that I've already done it?
So there are two things here. So the first is if you do it on the current registry, so that's on the Reverse Rett website, then you can just input all your details, and then a staff member will look at that, and then we'll be able to tell you whether or not you're already on it. If it's on the new registry, the system automatically checks against email. So it's an account-based system, just like it would be with, I don't know, Google or Facebook or something like that. So the system will check your email, see if the email is already registered, and it will tell you this email is registered if you've already done it. But to be honest, you'll and then you'll get, you'll be able to access things like password reset links and all that kind of the usual account stuff that you get with the service like Google or something like that, where if you've forgotten your password, if you've registered for a service and you've forgotten that you've registered for it or whatever, it'll be very easy to be able to reset your password, get back into the app, and all failing that, you just get in touch with a member of staff at Reverse Rett, and they'll sort it all out.
Dawn, I think we can just check for you whether Erin's already registered. We'll check and let you know.
But it might well be something that you would like to do, which is that obviously at the moment the Rett registry is how to say, it's patient. The unique identifier is the patient. So a patient has one person against that record who is the parent or carer or whatever. In this situation, it will be slightly different in that you'll have both patients and users, carers, contacts. And so you might be in a situation where you want to have multiple people who are managing that particular record. So you might want to have your partner, or you might want to have a friend or a carer or someone like that. So all they have to do is come along, create a new account, and then we're able to link that account with your permission, obviously, to the patient. So in that case, if the record already exists, you're able to just nip in, create a new account, and then you just tell a member of staff you want to link to this particular account, and the link can be made like that as well. So it'll be very intuitive and easy to do. I think
that's the bit that I must have missed when I've listened in before, Louise. Sorry about that, but having the ability to have other people be able to go into the app is totally transforming for people's lives, because there's been times when I've gone to I've taken Amber to appointments if Rachel's been away, and vice versa, and they've asked questions and I've not known. Just sign into the app and find out. And also for people whose children are at school and they're constantly going to hospital, if the school has access to the app, they can give them so much more information if they can't get in touch with the parents, which isn't always possible. So that's really massive, I think.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that we've been trying to work hard to do is to like make this the admin. I mean, it sounds like an absolute nightmare to have so many records, and then obviously you have like multiple people who are working with these patients, and it just sounds very, very difficult. So hopefully this will be one central place that you can put all your records, and you can share those between between other people, and it just makes it super easy. At a click of a button, you can download them to your phone, you can share them with someone, you can show them to a doctor or someone at the hospital or whatever it is at the school. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a useful.
And the other area that's going to really work is when somebody takes part in a clinical trial and they're filling in numerous questionnaires about medical history and things like that. Rather than dig around in boxes in the loft trying to find out things that happened 20 years ago, people are just going to be able to get this out and just, you know, have a look at that. And it's just going to make everything smoother.
I hope so. I hope so.
I think Lisa had a question.
Yeah, I'm in exactly the same situation as Dawn. I can't remember if my daughter's registered. I think she must be, but I really don't know. So if when you're checking with Dawn to check for me as well, please.
I'm pretty sure she is, Lisa, but
I can confirm you're registered, Lisa.
I am, because when you said password, I thought, I can't remember a password. So I thought maybe I'm not registered.
No, you definitely are, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, then, fine.
Dawn, can I check, is Erin's surname the same as yours?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we'll double check that. Any other questions about the app? Thank you, Louise. I think we're very excited. As a parent, I think the burden of record keeping is immense. Even I had a form come home from school yesterday that comes home every year. Really what I should do is photocopy it every year, so I have a copy, and it asks for all the professionals involved and all their contact numbers, and it takes me an hour to go around the house, find different letters, go, oh, I can't remember. If I just had it in one place, I could have organised that myself, but I haven't. But I will when I've got an app.
Yeah, here's the app. So
and just to confirm, this is due to be landing, we hope, late this year.
Yeah, so this will be within the next. We're rolling out a couple of versions. So we're testing it at the moment, and then it will be out within the next couple of months. Yeah.
Great, very exciting. Okay, I think we're heading back to Andy for a bit more news on the current clinical trials.
Okay.
Just we're quite tight on time, but we'll yeah.
Well, you know me, I like to waffle, so we'll probably go over. You can, if you get bored, just drop off and watch it later. You can wind through the boring bits. I'm sure there'll be plenty. Nice to see a picture of Louise here without a cool hat on. Moving on. Now I'm just going to talk you through a trial that is already happening in the UK for adults, and it's soon going to be happening for children. It's all been passed through ethics, which at this point I should probably say that that's another thing that we do at Reverse Rett. When the ethics committees meet to discuss whether this trial can go ahead and whether all the protocol is correct, Rachel attends the ethics committee meeting alongside Professor Santosh or whoever else goes from the hospitals, and puts the case forward about how important it is for families with people with Rett syndrome that they can that this trial goes ahead. So this trial that I've just put up here is for the same trial. It's the same drug, but it's for children. As I said, it's passed through everything. We are hopeful of at least 2 sites starting very end of October, early November, but we've still got to have that confirmed. But there is going to be, and anyone who's watching now, if you have a child between 5 and 17, and anyone who watches later, there is going to be an email coming out very soon as we get the green light from Anavex, asking for an expression of interest. So just keep an eye out for that, if that's something that is important to you and interests you. It's a fairly straightforward trial, as these trials go. It's only 12 weeks long. As I said, it's 15 to 17. It's randomized, double-blinded placebo trial, so that just means nobody knows during those 12 weeks what you're on, what the patient is on, whether they're on the drug or they've got placebo. At the end of the 12 weeks, you will go on to an extension period where you will get the drug, and you will know, and the doctor will know what dose of the drug, and it can be tweaked if things aren't going well, or if they're going, or if you want to just tweak the drug and see what the effects are, depending on how the patient is responding. That open label extension is usually 48 weeks, and usually, and I can't say this for definite because each trial is different, usually after that, if they've not got enough information and it hasn't gone through the process and been licensed, they will extend it until it is either withdrawn or licensed. So you will carry on compassionate use, is what they usually describe it as. So the beauty is of this trial, and most of the trials, is at some point your child is going to get the drug. You're not going to come out of it having spent all that time and had all that hope to find out that she was on, or he was on, placebo. You will get the drug. This trial has got 4 in-person visits in the first 12 weeks. Speaking to parents who are on the adult trial, those visits are fairly short. So you can stay over the night before, you can stay over the night after, you can stay both, or you can travel on the day and travel home. It's entirely up to the people who are involved on the trial and what suits the families. And there'll be 4 phone calls. I believe in the open label extension, there are less visits. I think it's once every 2 or 3 months. Last time I spoke to Anavex about that particular question, they were still unsure about how many visits there would be, purely down to COVID. Things have just changed, and the goalposts have kept moving over the last 18 months like you wouldn't believe. Trials have started, then been cancelled, not cancelled, but postponed to a later date. One trial, the CBD trial, that got cancelled because of COVID, and there are still, I think, 3 patients in the UK on CBD, and those patients are still on it even though the trial has been cancelled because they were seeing such great benefits. So it's obviously very, very, very disappointing for everyone when a trial doesn't carry on or doesn't go forward and the drug doesn't get licensed. But unfortunately, that's just science. That's just how these things work. Clinical trials are exactly that. They're trying something. They're not guaranteed a positive outcome. And we've been on the wrong side of that with Serizitan, because that drug really did help Amber, but the trial was cancelled, and we still haven't got right to the bottom of why that was. But there was still 8 patients in the UK on that drug at the time, and all of them were extremely disappointed about the fact that was stopped. But you've got to be pragmatic about it and just realize that these things happen, and eventually there's going to be a time where these drugs are available, and the more people that take part in clinical trials, the sooner that's going to happen. So for this particular trial, there are 4 trial sites that are pretty much confirmed. Rett Centre in London is a definite, and so is Dr. Banker in Manchester. They're both doing the adult trial, so they're the sites that will be starting sooner, most likely. And then there's Nottingham and Edinburgh that are both pretty much nailed on. And then there's one other site in London, which I won't mention just in case it doesn't happen, where they're still negotiating terms and sorting out the red tape and contracts. So we're really excited about this study, because it has already, although the drug has never been used in Rett syndrome, the trial started in Australia last year, and I don't know if any of you go on some of the, and it's only anecdotal evidence from parents, but a lot of parents have seen big improvements in various symptoms, different for different children, a bit like CBD. So there's none of them, because of Rett syndrome, as you know, has so many different symptoms. There isn't one fits all at this present time. Hopefully gene therapy will be the answer to that. Who knows? But for me personally, from a professional and a personal point of view, it's a very, very exciting time. So that's that. There will be an email coming out. So if your daughter is in that age range, keep an eye out for that. Oh, it's frozen again. Hang on. Wesley's still on here.
Yeah, I'm here.
It's not moving again.
Press the arrow, the 2 arrows to expand it, and then press right.
Yeah, still not doing it. Hang on, can do it manually, I think. Oh yeah, I've done it at the bottom. Okay, just a little bit. I'll keep this short, and Beth's just going to chime in with a little bit of information on this. The SIT Rett Centre monitoring. As you know, it's a clinical treatment and research centre for children and adults with Rett syndrome and related disorders of all ages. They include consultants from various specialities, and it's an intervention centre which is based on holistic multimodal approach. Basically means it's not one size fits all. They take each patient in isolation. There is some monitoring and questionnaires that need filling in, which I've never filled in because Rachel's done ours. So I'll hand over to Beth so she can just tell you a little bit about what's involved.
Yeah, it really is only a little bit. One thing that I would say is, you know, I think when we say that we're doing sessions on participating in clinical research, I think the initial assumption is that what we mean is clinical trials, but there are ways to be part of research without being on a clinical trial. So even if your daughter's or son is not participating in a clinical trial, you can be part of research, which is being part of the database or even being registered on the app. That's still part of being involved in research. And one of the things that Professor Santosh will talk about next Friday is why that's beneficial both to your child and to the wider Rett community. So doing these questionnaires, being part of the database, is actually really beneficial to your daughter and to research in general, which then in turn will hopefully be beneficial to your daughter. So the questionnaires are quite straightforward. I think we're all used to doing questionnaires. When you're on the database, you get a weekly questionnaire, which is quite simple and takes maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And that's just to kind of track symptoms on quite a regular basis. So they just ask you questions about main symptoms. Has anything changed? You fill them in. It's generally a scale of 1 to 10. So how often this week has your daughter experienced difficulties with breathing or teeth grinding or hand movements, etc. And you fill them in and submit it and it goes off. And if the team at the Rett Centre see from that data that there's an issue, you know, a kind of alert goes off basically, and they will then get in touch with you and say, you know, what's going on? Maybe we should have a call. Let's have a look at the other symptoms. So they'll be monitoring the data. You don't have to interpret it. You just got to answer the questions. That's been particularly important during COVID. They obviously built in extra questions like temperature and coughs. And they were much more careful about not that they're not normally careful, but there were more alerts attached to it. So, you know, as soon as anyone said, yeah, my child's had a temperature for a couple of days, then they're getting in touch with you to say, look, we need to monitor this. So it's really useful. The weekly ones are not particularly laborious. You just have to remember to do them. You get a login, you sign in, you do them, the data goes off. But it's actually quite a useful way to remind yourself of how symptoms are going and kind of, you know, I think a lot of the time we live with symptoms which we just forget aren't that normal, you know, and then when you have to do something weekly about them, it reminds you, oh, do you know what, that has got worse, or sometimes, oh, that's got way better. It's quite a useful thing to do. You then get, I think it's every 3 months, you get what they call a battery of questions, which is how it sounds, unfortunately. And you just get a lot, and they are a bigger picture look at all the different symptoms in much more detail. That takes about half an hour to do all of them. And as with questionnaires like this, there's no avoiding that it can be a bit a bit depressing, I suppose, because you're looking, you know, you're being made to really confront all the things that are going on with your daughter or son. But again, incredibly helpful for the Rett Centre in terms of research, but also really helpful in terms of flagging up over a longer period. Are things changing? Is something getting worse that they need to pick up on and then start to try and deal with you? And they will do that. They'll contact you and say, you know what, you know, over the last 6 months, it sounds like breathing has really deteriorated. We need to do something about this. So it's a way of you, you know, I don't know about anybody else, but our paediatric appointments are now yearly. They used to be 4 or 5 months apart. They seem to be getting further apart. You're waiting longer. And then there's not really a centralized place where all this information is. So the questionnaires are really a way of having that database that can then be looked back on by the Rett Centre and say, wow, there's been improvement, or there's been deterioration in these areas. And obviously, if you are trialing a new medication or something like that, then that's particularly important, because you can step back and go, since we started the medication, actually, I've been saying that her breathing's getting slightly better and better, or whatever it is. So not too laborious, a bit of a pain about every 3 months, but compared to what you're getting back from it, it's really useful, and you are also benefiting wider research at the same time. So yeah.
It's important. Sorry, Dawn, go ahead.
Where do you sign up for that?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I suddenly thought, where am I going to direct you to? It's on our website, right? Andy, have you got the link?
I've just posted the link in the chat, Dawn.
Thank
so you
you.
can. I just wanted to say a couple of things about that. And I've forgotten the first one, so I'll probably have to go to the second one. I had a conversation with a parent this morning who tried to get their child referred to the Rett Centre through their GP, and they've been sitting there waiting for that to happen for months, and it hasn't happened. So go to the link I've just shared in the chat and do it now. Do it as quickly as you can. There's 150 patients now signed up doing these questionnaires, and the centre, since they started, which is almost 2 years, well, it's 2 years this month, I think, they've published 5 papers in scientific journals about effects, different things within Rett syndrome, symptoms and what have you. And they've only been able to do that because of the information they're garnering from parents. So it's very, very important for everybody to do it, to make sure that the clinicians understand this complex condition that we're all living with. Because it's so difficult to get people to listen, and that's what we're really trying to gain by having this centre and having a situation where parents are giving detailed information about different symptoms and different problems that they're living with, so that they can sort it out and work out what they can do to help. So while we're waiting for the cure, there's nothing to say that we can't make life a lot easier for our children and also ourselves, you know, because it takes a toll on absolutely everybody who's involved in the care of someone with Rett syndrome. I'm just going to go back to my screen. Oh, I'm on the wrong bit. There's a shock. So basically that's it. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've talked about today? If you feel as though you might have questions, but they're not coming into your mind at this moment in time, because I've been talking for quite a while now, which is standard for me, you can email them to me or Beth, or if it's about the app, Louise. Any of us, we're all available to you if you need to ask anything at all.
I was also going to say tomorrow's session is a parent panel session discussing different experiences of actually being on a clinical trial, and that will include, you know, things that we've talked about a bit today, things that Andy said about how we support families participating, how they manage the logistics. I'll be part of that as well, just talking about our experiences of having our daughter on a trial which didn't work out but was still beneficial in other ways. So if you have questions around things like that, also feel free to join tomorrow and put your questions to some of the parent panel who've been on different trials with different outcomes, so hopefully a range of experiences. But obviously please ask questions now as well, if you like. Anybody got anything pressing?
I would just bear in mind, if you come into tomorrow's session, the 3 parents, and I could possibly be on there again, are going to be talking about Sarizatam, which was a very, very difficult trial to manage as a parent. The trials that we're talking about at the moment, Anavex, it's not a difficult trial in the same way. It's totally different. So they're not all trials are the same. So if somebody's put off by something they hear, don't be. Talk to us. Hopefully we can reassure you and give you the correct information, because we're in the misinformation age. There's so much information out there. We don't know who's telling the truth and who's not. So come to us. We're always here to help you. And if no one's got a question,
could you take your screen down so we can go back to gallery?
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? I was just going to ask, in case it had occurred to anyone, Andy, you spoke about if, you know, people have just changed their mind the night before. What about 2 weeks in? Like if you're in a trial and you decide, do you know what, this isn't actually what we want anymore, can you just walk away? Yeah,
you can walk away at any time. If there's anything at all that's concerning, or you just don't think the trial is right for your child, you can just stop. And the beauty of that is, not the beauty of it, one of the advantages of being on a trial or even being pre-screened for a trial is you're getting your child in front of somebody who knows what they're talking about. Now, we all know that we've been in front of a lot of people who don't really know what they're talking about when it comes to Rett syndrome and our own flesh and blood. So that is an advantage. Even if you end up, the trial doesn't work out, we've had patients where it's not. They've managed to get in front of somebody who's been able to help them in other ways. And I without preempting what Beth's going to talk about tomorrow, I think she's going to talk, bring that up. Whereas, yeah, that's a certain trial didn't work out, but there were benefits attached to the fact that she'd taken part in the first place. So, yeah, leave
absolutely.
any time.
I think that is, something we'll cover tomorrow, that even if the drug doesn't work out the way that you had intended or hoped for, it doesn't mean that a clinical trial has been a waste of time by any means. It can prove to be really beneficial in ways that you weren't necessarily expecting. But we'll certainly look at that tomorrow. I'm aware that we've gone quite over time. I would just say the email that will come out to you this afternoon will have a little feedback form. We'd really appreciate it if you take I think it takes about 90 seconds to fill in. If you could do that, it's just useful for us to prove that these sessions are valid and useful, and to try and get continuing funding for them. And also in that email will be details of tomorrow's session if you would like to book and join. Remember, even if you can't make it in person tomorrow, if you sign up, you'll get sent the link to the recording straight afterwards. And there'll also be the link to Professor Santosh's session, as I said, which is next Friday at 2:00. And he will be talking about actually the SIP Rett Centre's experience of running clinical trials, what they've learned, and how, as I said, how taking part is actually benefiting the wider Rett community. So that's going to be a useful one. Also, just keep an eye on our website and the information events page for the October sessions. The October sessions are going to be on nutrition, particularly blended diet, anxiety and depression in Rett syndrome, and hopefully a couple of sessions on transition. So thinking about moving into adulthood, if that's something your child is. I don't know, Dawn's nodding nervously. like me. Yes, that's something you're starting to think about. So keep your eye on information events for that one. I think that's it, unless anyone suddenly thought of a question. Thank you.
Filling in your feedback forms, just be kind.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Thank you, Andy. And we hope to see some of you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.